Ms. Fraser, thank you so much for this interview. You have drafted a report on the observation of the local elections in the Republic of Moldova in June this year. One of the conclusions of your report outlines the need for strengthen self-government and ensure effective administration at the grassroots level. What does this mean in practical terms?
Well, I think what it means in practical terms that, we also had post-monitoring, talking with governments in Moldova after our report was given in the monitoring committee. But I know also for a fact that, like Norway, the Association of Local and Regional Authorities there have already a program where we are helping building like an association and building local democracy from grassroots by showing and sharing our best practice.
Is this a cooperation between NGOs or is more than NGOs?
No, it's more than NGOs. There are people that are working for the Norwegian associations that are deployed and will go and visit Moldova in different communities. And they've already started this program. And I'm sure that the Council of Europe will follow up and also contribute to this.
Because you are representing here Norway, and I'm sure that you can give us an example of how the self-government works in your country. Can we make a comparison? How does the self-governance work in Norway and how should work in Moldova?
Well, I think first of all, it's important for me to say that in Norway, I think we have the oldest self-government law in the world. Self-government on local level. And it's from 1837. And we are still not perfect, but we are pretty free, I think the most important thing to say about how we work in Norway is that we are completely not depending on government, both in regional and local government. We are totally free. We have our own funding, and we
coming from the funding
partly from taxes from the people and
from the local taxes.
Yeah, local, and partly from taxes from the government given back out. But on it's given out. The government gives us money based on things that are measurable, not based on if they like our local government or not.
So it's not an automatic percentage coming to your region, for instance, or to a region. It's based on the economic
inhabitants, how many school children, how many kindergarten children,
some criteria,
how many
some
meters
fixed
of
criteria.
road. Yeah, so it's fixed. And I think that is the most important thing, that local government actually has funding so they can show their people in their communities that it actually works if they vote for me or the other person, and that we have our own funding that isn't depending on the state or what the state means or wants to do. So that is totally free self-government, and I think that is very important because, without freedom from the upper layers, you don't have a self-government. So I think that is the most important thing to do, strengthen and make sure that there can be no cheating, no possibilities to take funds from banks or from local governments or whatever, and make sure that every local elected person is responsible to the people.
You have criticized the legislative voting provisions regarding the Moldovans living abroad in your report. They were allowed to vote only if they were in the country, and you have underlined that this is not in line with the Congress provisions. Share with us more details on this.
Well, our understanding is that it's about approximately 1 million Moldovans living abroad. And this isn't a state election, this isn't a government election, this is a local election. That means that you have to live in your local community to elect your local people. And that also means that if you live in the United States or in Norway, you cannot elect your local because you're not living there. You don't know what they have given you the last 4 years. You don't know if they're good or bad people. So both in, to European standards and also the election mission that was in Moldova, we mean that you have to stay in your community, in that area, to be able to vote. So that is why you should not be able to vote when you live abroad in local or regional elections, because that's just for the people that are actually living where they go to elect their people.
You also have been member of the monitoring delegation to the Bashkan elections in Gagauzia. Share with us the most important conclusions of your delegation, of your mission there.
Well, I think from what I remember from the election of the Bashkan in Gagauzia, there's been some changes until we went now in June for the rest, and there's been good changes, because what was not so good in Gagauzia is that they made their own voters list, and we weren't quite sure how these voters lists were made, and it wasn't very clear, and it was also possibilities to put extra names on, which again means that you don't have fixed voters and control of the people living in your local area. So that was not so good. And there were some difficulties or differences with funding of campaign activities and things like that. So that was our main findings of bad things, but the good things was, there are good things. There are, usually quite calm and when it comes to election days and things, and the government is trying to improve rules. And for us, that is good to see. And again, it's a long way from 1837 till today, and Moldova and Gagauzia is new democracies. So they haven't had from 1837.
So your advice would be, from a person like you coming in such well-established democracy, also at this local level, your advice would be, Moldovans, you have to be patient, and you have to work further. You have to be patient and do your homework, not reinventing the warm water, but just to take the best practices, examples, and to apply in your economy, in your system, in your
that's my best advice. That's
system.
what Council of Europe is all about, and Moldova is a member in the Council of Europe. That is why we have been able to go there. So take our best practices from whatever country and be patient. And for the voters, democracy isn't like this. Don't stop voting. Don't stop hoping for improvements and a better future.
In June, as you were there, the Moldovans were already demonstrating because of the banking scandal, calling for the resignation of the country's top officials. Did you perceive this uprising also at the local level?
Yes, we did see, mostly the uprising were in Chisinau, but there were also uprising in other cities, main cities around the country. And we did see an impact. People are, I think they are in total distrust of the political class that was not able to make sure that the citizens' rights were taken care of. They've stopped trusting political class because they've allowed this to happen, and
corruption.
a billion, corruption, and that is not a good way for democracy. And I think it's quite sad, because that also means that the citizens, the voters, stop believing in, why should I go and vote? So the banking,
their power to change their system. Their power to play a role in the political system in their country.
Because of the corruption. So I think, that is something that needs to be addressed with strict regulation and laws, and it needs to be addressed quick to build the confidence with the people again.
Because of those demonstrations, there is these days the idea of early election. It's promoted in some media, and not only some organizations are promoting this idea. What would be your recommendation for the authorities regarding the next elections in Moldova, if they are early or not? The most important issue is that those elections to be in line with the most democratic practices.
Yes. Well, I think more important than putting elections forward is to ensure that they are fair, transparent. They need to address restrictions on party fundings and campaign activities. They also have to strengthen their legal framework. They have to make it transparent who are the owners of media, and not only like, you know, the company name, but who stands behind and who is paying, because, you know, all campaigning, everything that comes from media isn't necessarily what is the true story. Because if media are owned by big companies that have an agenda, it not might be the truth that is coming up. Yeah. So I think, you know, to make sure that regulations, rules, and the framework are in place to ensure that the judiciary systems, with all the judges and whatever, are freed and parted away from the state, so that a new elected government cannot go and overrule or tell judges or, you know, the legal system what to do. That should be separated. So if you get these things in place, I think that is more important than to press forward an election.
Ms. Fraser, thank you so much for this interview.
Thank you, and good luck to the Moldovians in election and with democracy.